or gas.
Like that.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Hello, hello. I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth dimension. Big book study, that is. Glad you guys are all here. Thank you for joining. I know I'm glad I'm here. I never feel more alive than when I'm sharing God's message of the miracle of recovery in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that I discovered in a book called Alcoholics Anonymous that we are going to share tonight, and looking forward to doing that with you guys. And thanks everyone for coming as always. As we always do, we will start tonight out with the set aside prayer. It goes a little something like this. Sing along if you know the words. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, about the 12 steps, and please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. And as this is the fourth dimension big book study, I always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. So first of all, on page 8, Bill Wilson writes that I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then on page 25, Bill Wilson writes that we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. So, we're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. For all who will, for the sake of tradition and custom of the fourth dimension big book study, everyone please put one hand up like this. And everybody please put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh yeah. I never get tired of that. I love it. And I love being here with you guys. And thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to have fun tonight. I hope you guys all have fun tonight. It's entirely optional, but it's highly recommended. We absolutely insist on enjoying life in Alcoholics Anonymous. We are not a glum lot. So we are going to we're going to do a little bit of review on step 4, resentments, and then we're going to move into the second part of step 4. So, I mean, just to highlight for everyone again. Our book says that we consider self manifested in various ways. It was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. So what are the 3 common manifestations of self that I look at in a 4-step inventory according to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Those 4 things, first of all, is resentment. And we're going to finish up on resentment tonight. We're going to do a little bit more review and we're going to be done with resentment. Then we move into another 4-column inventory, and that is going to be a fear inventory. And I had no idea what that meant when I was new. I did not think I had any fear whatsoever, and we'll talk about that tonight. And then the last common manifestation of self that we'll look at, and we'll look at this next week, is sex conduct, okay? So we look at resentments, we look at fear, we look at sex conduct. We're going to finish up on resentments tonight. We're going to just polish off some of what we talked about last week. Then we're going to move into fears and get started on our fear inventory. So with that said, I am going to share this screen. Can you guys see the whiteboard? See what I'm sharing there? Okay, so just to summarize very quickly, column 1 in a resentment inventory is who were we mad at? We listed people, principles, or institutions with whom we were angry. Column 2, we asked ourselves why we were angry. Okay. And what I've been taught, what I believe, is that in the examples on page 65 in our book, the Bill Wilson, who's writing that out, those examples, never uses more than 19 words in total to explain why he's angry. Okay. So again, I don't want to get into a big saga, the 3-part mini series of why Kevin was wronged. I want to be very quick. They stole from me. They lied to me. She cheated on me. They humiliated me, whatever it is. Okay, very quick bullet points. Then I move into column 3, affects my. And in column 3, the affects my are going to be on the top of page 65 as well. On our grudge list, we said opposite each name, our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security? And there's 3 types of security: physical security, emotional security, and financial security that we look at. Our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with. And so I just want to say too, if you're new here to the study, this is your first time to the study, and it seems like I'm moving very rapidly through this, I am, because this is strictly review. We've been going over this the last couple of weeks. If you want to kind of get caught up to speed on this, I'll recommend you can go to YouTube and you can listen to the prior 2 weeks recordings of this big book study. And if you have any questions as well, I'm happy to chat with you about them after the study. So then on in between column 3 and column 4 is an essential part of what we do. We pray for the people that we resent. Okay, that's what our book tells us to do. And we realize that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick or suffering, and we look at them as suffering people. The people in column 1 that we resent, we try to see them as suffering people. And on page 67 and page 552 are the 2 prayers that we say. Okay, so on page 67, and actually, Brad, are you here today? Brad S?
Hey, Kevin, I'm here.
Hey, awesome, Brad. Thank you. As our designated reader on page 67, would you like to read for us the sick man, or the step 4 prayer on page 67? We asked God.
Yes, page 67. We ask God to, hi everybody, I'm Brad, I'm an alcoholic. We ask God to help us. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done.
Okay, and then the other part of the step 4 anger prayer that I like to take my sponsees through is on page 552. And Brad, would you be willing to read that for us as well?
Yeah, just let me get to page 552 real quick.
Got it. He said, in effect, on page 552.
I'm ready. He said, in effect, if you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and you will find you have come to mean it and you want it for them. And you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate understanding and love.
Okay, so quite simply, what I ask my sponsees to do for every resentment that they have written down, and we may have, how many resentments should we have? That's a good question. I think I don't want to put a definitive number on it. I think that 5 is probably not enough. Okay. I think that 250 is probably a lot. Okay. Somewhere in the middle there. I think typically most of the step 5s I've listened to, I'm going to say there's like 30 to 70 resentments. Okay. And the discipline, what I ask my sponsees to do is for every person on the list, one time. And remember, we've talked about some resentments are like nickel and dime resentments, and some resentments are what we call $50 bills. Okay. And whether the resentment is a nickel and dime or whether the resentment is a $50 bill, we say the same prayer. Okay. And so let's say column one is
Well,
Jason. You know who Jason is? Actually, I do know who Jason is. Jason's someone on my mind right now. So I'm going to say a little prayer for Jason right now. Okay. And
not the start.
so, so the prayer that we would say would sound like this: God, um, please help me to show Jason the same tolerance, pity, and patience I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Jason is a sick and suffering man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. And then to add the part on page 552, God, please grant Jason everything I want for myself. And please, God, grant Jason health, prosperity, and health, prosperity, and happiness. Thank you. Health, prosperity, and happiness. Okay. And we say that prayer one time for every person on the list, just as a discipline and getting used to the idea of praying for people that we resent. Okay. Is that going to work for the $50 bills? Am I going to be able to say it for the $50 bill person and feel immediate, contentment and compassion and understanding where I used to feel bitterness and hatred? No. The discipline, the ethic that it says on page 552, we say that prayer every day for 2 weeks. And truthfully, brothers and sisters, there's been times where I've had to say it more than that. Okay. I've had to say it a lot of times and continue to pray for people because, sometimes if they're still in my life, I may go through this process and feel some level of forgiveness and understanding and compassion. And then, man, I see him next week and they do the same thing and it irritates me all over again. And so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of continual work. But I have to be free of these resentments. Resentment is the number one offender and it kills more alcoholics than anything else. Okay. Another, just a couple things I'll share with you. One is to try and see the good in people rather than focusing on what I resent about them, to try and focus on them as look at what's good about them, okay, and what they do well, and try to focus on that. And as I shared last week, in the Jewish faith tradition, they say, in the Talmud or in the Big Book, if you like, there are capital letters and there are lowercase letters. I need to learn to see the good things about people in capital letters and the bad things or the things that irritate me about them in lowercase letters, okay? And try to accentuate what's good about them and try to focus on that. Am I perfect at doing that all the time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. And I continue to use this spiritual toolkit and continue to use these tools to overcome these resentments. So now let's go into column 4. Now that we've said the prayer and got a little bit of compassionate understanding and love for these people, even a little bit. Oh, and by the way, sorry, I forgot to talk about the hospital meditation. Another thing that we do is to say to do the hospital meditation, which is our book says to treat them in the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. So the person who has offended me, the person who I resent, the person in column 1, to imagine going through a process of going to visit them in the hospital where they are sick and truly suffering physically and in pain, and thinking about how I would feel for them in that moment right then and there, and thinking about what kind of act of kindness or act of service I might do for them at that time, and I'll begin to feel a little bit of compassion for them and a little bit of forgiveness. Okay. Then we move into column 4. And I'm going to go through this quickly. I know we spent a lot of time on it last week. Column 4, the question our book asks is, we ask ourselves, where were we to blame? Okay. And there are 3 places that I look in terms of where am I to blame. And the first is, as we said last week, I look in the past, which is to say, and we go to page 62 and look what it says on page 62. We asked ourselves, what decisions based on self did I make that put me in this position to be hurt? I had it backwards for a long time, and I thought that where I'm to blame is how I reacted to whatever it was they did in column 2, and that's not the case. What I look at is in what ways, our book says, did I step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliated, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find at some point in the past, I made a decision based on self that put me in this position to be hurt. Okay, so if we look at page 65, the easiest example is Mr. Brown, of course. Mr. Brown, his attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress, Brown may get my job at the office. Okay, and we went through this last week. Hey, if I don't have a mistress in the first place, Mr. Brown doesn't get to tell my wife about my mistress. That's a decision based on self that I made that put me in that position to be hurt. Okay, Mr. Brown is paying attention to my wife. Well, how did I step on the toes of people, my fellows, and they're retaliating? Hey, I'm not paying attention to my wife. Who am I paying attention to? I'm paying attention to my mistress, apparently. Okay. And so Mr. Brown now is paying attention to my wife. I don't like that, but I need to look at how did I create this situation? Okay. Our problems, we think, are of our own making, is what the book says. And that's very good news because that means I can stop making them. Lastly, if we look at Brown may get my job at the office. Okay. Well, do you think I'm employee number one? Do you think I'm doing a bang up job as an employee for my boss? No, all you have to do is go down and look at my employer. Unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. Okay, that's who I am at work. No wonder Mr. Brown is going to get my job at the office. Of course, he's going to get my job at the office. I'm stealing from my boss and showing up drunk all the time. But we don't see it that way, do we? I don't look at it that way. No, I just look, I'm a victim. That Mr. Brown is out to get me. You know, our book says we often have the sense that people are trying to pull us down. Okay. And what do I need to do? I need to look at what am I doing to put myself in that position in the first place. Okay. So that's the first place we look in column 4, in the past. Secondly, I look in the mirror, which is to say what our book says is that putting out of our minds the wrongdoings of others, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, and frightened? Okay. So what I want to do is look at whatever it is that I'm judging this person for, whatever it is that I resent them for. Am I guilty of doing the same thing, or am I capable of being guilty of doing the same thing? Okay. So, you know, I made the joke, or not the joke, but I told the story last week of a guy named Mike who humiliated me at a party and made fun of me, and everyone laughed, and he got laughs at my expense. Okay, he looked better by hurting my feelings. Okay, and I resented him for doing that for years. Well, what I need to ask myself is, have I ever done that same thing? Have I ever made fun of someone to make myself look better? Yes. Okay. And none of this, guys, changes what happened between Mike and I. It doesn't change what happens between myself and Mr. Brown. What it changes is the way that I look at it. Okay. It changes my perception of the situation when I'm willing to look and say, like, you know what, I have done that same thing. And that's how we grow compassion and understanding. We talked about this last week. Pity is, I feel sorry for you. Empathy is, I know how you feel. But compassion is, we are the same. I am the same as you. And this is how we grow compassion, by asking ourselves, you know, with Mr. Brown, you know, for example, Brown may get my job at the office. Okay. Well, have I ever, or am I capable of being the type of guy who would try to angle someone out of their career to make myself look better? You know, kick someone when they're down and try and steal their job. Could I do something like that? And am I capable of that? Absolutely, I am. Okay. I don't know about you, but I'm the type of guy, I could do something like that. Okay. And suddenly the monstrous victimization that Mr. Brown has over me starts to lose its power. Okay. And we start to see the world in a way that grown-ups and adults will refer to as reality. Okay. We don't do well with reality as alcoholics. Okay. I don't want to see things that way. I'm the victim here. I'm the one who's been hurt. Okay. And we need to start seeing these things correctly. One of the things that I wanted to point out as well from last week, I didn't mention it last week. Our book says the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. And it's important that we talk about this as we get into the last part of resentment. When I look at the third part, so the three parts that I look at in column 4, I look at where am I to blame in the past? Where am I to blame when I look in the mirror? And the third is where am I to blame today? Which is to say, in what ways am I using this resentment as a way to justify and rationalize and excuse my ongoing bad behavior? Now, here's the thing. The wrongdoings of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. Some of the resentments that I have towards people are fancied. They're fantasy. They're fiction. They're not real. I made them up. Okay? Or I blew them out of proportion or whatever it is. And there's a magical thing when I start to put it down in pen and paper, they kind of just dissolve mysteriously because they were never real in the first place. The wrongdoings of others that I fancied. On the other hand, there are some harms that were done to me, and I presume to you, that are real. People wanted to hurt you and me. They were successful in doing so. And I'm holding on to that real harm that they caused me, okay? And this in particular, when I look at things that are related to trauma. We hear a lot about trauma in AA these days. I hear a lot about trauma. Big T trauma, little t trauma, okay? All these traumas. People that came from abusive relationships, childhood sexual abuse, okay? All of those things. I know we talked about this at length last week. Here's the thing. Are those real and authentic traumas that need to be taken care of and respected and validated? Yes, 100%. Our book says on page 133 that we can seek outside help for things like that, okay? But I was never going to get effective outside help until I got sober. And I couldn't get sober until I realized that I used those abuses and those traumas and those resentments as an excuse to justify my ongoing drinking and terrible behavior, okay? I would ride that pony as long and as hard as I could, okay? I would, man. I would sit in a bar and tell people about abuse that I suffered. And it was real, genuine abuse, but I would use it, okay? And the worst, I would use it if they were buying me drinks. I want people to feel sorry for me, okay? I don't know about you. Maybe you guys never did that, but I sure did, okay? And the worst was when I started to weaponize it against my own family because they knew what happened and why weren't you there, and on and on and on. If these things happen to you, you would drink too. Okay, that's how we use those. And so what I needed to do was to get real about that, to get honest about that with myself. When I take these resentments and I look at where am I to blame today, I had to get real that I was using those and morphing them into a type of self-pity that was continuing to fuel my alcoholic mind into convincing me that taking another drink was going to be okay. Once I was able to get real about that, and it was not easy, it was a bitter pill to swallow, but once I was able to get free of that and get real about it, and then couple that with the prayer for those people, as grudging as it was, as much as it irritated me that I had to say a prayer for those people that harmed me, that really harmed me, and then to admit that I was the one using it. Look, here's the thing. Like, yeah, I suffered abuse as a kid, as a lot of us have. But I did far more damage to myself behind the narrative of that abuse over the next 20 or 30 years than the actual abuse ever did. brothers and sisters, I want you to know I became my own abuser. That's the truth. If something happened to me when I was a kid, I'm a victim then. Okay. And somebody harms us and they mean to, I'm a victim. But years later, if I'm still getting drunk at that thing, I am a volunteer. And I am now become my own abuser. Okay. And I had to get real about that. And then I was able to stay sober. And for me, when I was 4 years sober and I had a solid foundation in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had a solid foundation at a group and a solid sponsor and a relationship with God, and I was sponsoring people of my own, and I was strong in my sobriety in AA, then I was able to go and do genuine, true, authentic trauma therapy that was very effective for the first time ever in my life. Does that make sense, you guys? It may be hard to hear for some of you if no one's ever said that, but give me a thumbs up if that resonates. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Okay, guys. All right, so that's a very quick review of resentments in step 4. So now we're going to get into fear, our fear inventory. So we're at the bottom of page 67, everyone. Okay, bottom of page 67, and it says, notice that the word fear. Now, what I recommend, a lot of you are going to be sponsoring people of your own, and I love it. That's the purpose of this study, is to come and learn, not just to take, but remember, guys, the transition that we all need to make in AA is to make that transition from being takers to being givers, okay? Just 1 second, Karen, I see your hand up there. Just give me 1 minute. And so what we want to do is come here and learn how to teach this work to someone new, okay? I know my man Benjamin Collins is all over it, making notes like crazy, and I'm sure you guys all are. So on page 67, notice the word fear. This is where fear inventory begins in the big book. Okay, so if you're making notes in your book, you might want to put step 4, fear, and we're going to kick this off. Karen, do you have a question?
Yeah, I missed the page number that you gave for affects mine on the other inventory, on the resentment.
Oh, it's the top of page 65. Top of page 65, Karen.
Top of 165?
Sorry, just 65.
Just 65.
Just 65.
Oh, just 65?
You bet. Just 65. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, Brad, would you be kind enough to get us started at the bottom of page 67, and we'll kick off fear inventory and see if we can't get through this tonight. One thing, you know what? I'm going to mention this as well, guys. Somebody last week brought this to my attention. I think it was important to do. This study seems to go past 7 o'clock my time. It goes past the hour almost every time. And someone very kindly and gently acknowledged to me that that might be a little bit selfish on my part. That I just expect you guys to hang out over time every time we do this. So I'm going to do my best from now on. And I think it was a valid thing, and I want to respect everyone's time. I'm going to do my very best to get this to an hour and only an hour every time. We'll end at the hour, and then when we stay afterwards to make our introductions and say hello to everyone, that's optional, but that will go past 7 p.m. But I'm going to do my best to stay right within the hour from now on, guys, okay? So thank you. I won't say who it was that brought that up, but I'm grateful to them for bringing that up. Sometimes we need solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. We need help from the outside sometimes. So I'm grateful for that. With that said, Brad, let's get into fear inventory, page 67. Notice that the word fear.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm smiling not because of that, but because we're guilty on Monday nights as well. So it's good to hear that from somebody too. All right. Thanks, everyone. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was
Okay,
good.
so we're going to stop right there, Brad. We're going to stop right there really quick because believe it or not, we just went through the first 3 columns of a fear inventory. Okay, it happens fast, man. Thank God I had a good sponsor and attended many big book studies where they were able to like point out to me that the instructions are clear cut and they're in there, but they're just sometimes hard for my alcoholic mind to find and hard to see. So I'm going to share this with you. The first direction it says we reviewed our fears. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. So column 1 of a fear inventory simply is what are we afraid of? What is the fear? Okay, and I'm going to share this with you. There we go. Oh, shoot. I had it. Hang on. There we go. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see the whiteboard? Okay, so column 1 is what am I afraid of? Now, fear is something that I didn't think I had at all. I didn't understand what they were talking about. Okay, I thought they were talking about, you know, fear of heights and fear of flying and fear of spiders and stuff like that. I didn't understand fear. I didn't understand fear until somebody put it in conjunction with the word self-centered fear. Okay, and what we're really talking about are mortal fears that I have about myself, about my life, about my well-being. Okay, and my obsession with what's going to happen to me and what is going to become of me. And we talk about the 3 types of fears that people can have. I can be afraid, number 1, that I'm not going to get something that I want. Number 2, that I'm going to lose something that I have. Or number 3, that I've done something I shouldn't have done and I'm going to get caught. What is the common denominator in all those fears? The answer, of course, is me. Self-centered fears. Okay, so when we're listing these out, and Rob, do you happen to have the step 4 fear prompt? Do you have that, or can you find it, or maybe just put it in the chat? Just like we have the step 4 resentment prompt. I thought I had it here, but it's on my phone, but it's not on my computer. The step 4 fear prompt is the same idea as the step 4 resentment prompt. Resentment prompt gives me several things that I might resent. The fear prompt gives me several things that I might be afraid of. Okay, and again, we're not talking about spiders or snakes or tall buildings or anything like that. I'm talking about my fear of rejection. Okay, I've yet to meet an alcoholic that does not have a fear of rejection. I might have a fear of abandonment. I might have a fear of getting sick. Okay, I might have a fear of not being smart enough. I have a fear that I'm going to be a failure. I have a fear of financial insecurity. I have a fear that I'm going to get fired. I have a fear that I'm unlovable. I have a fear I'm going to be alone forever. Do you guys see what's the common thread in all of these fears? Okay, the common thread is me being obsessed with me, my self-obsession about my life. Okay, and we need to get these down and start to deal with them. Okay, me sitting at home alone thinking about myself is the most dangerous place in the world for me to be. Okay, I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about how I'm feeling. And usually I'm thinking about how I'm feeling about how I'm feeling. Okay. And it's a terrible place to live, man. It's a terrible place to live. Okay. And the more that I think, the worse the fears become. You know, and Bill says these fears are an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our lives was shot through with it. Okay. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. And the thing about these fears is that, you know, we don't realize a lot of times that we're living with this fear. I certainly wasn't anymore. If you think about this analogy of an evil and corroding thread and the fabric of our lives was shot through with it. Think about how you're wearing your clothes right now. We don't think about our clothes. A lot of times we don't even notice that we're wearing clothes. We put clothes on in the morning and they're just kind of with us all day. And that's how it is in fear. We're covered in this fabric of fear that is woven with this evil and corroding thread that's destroying our lives. And most times we don't even know it. My great grand sponsor, Chuck Chamberlain, talked about, the story of two little fishes. There's two little fish swimming in the water. And one of the fish says, isn't this, it's a beautiful day. Isn't the water beautiful today? And the other fish says, what's water? Little fish had no idea that they were swimming around in this ocean in which they lived and had their being. And that's me with fear when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was crippled with 1,000 forms of fear and did not know it. I was swimming around in an ocean of self-centered fear, okay? So that's column one. We list what these fears might be, things that we might be afraid of. Some of them are general, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear I'm not physically attractive. One I had for years, by the way, in early sobriety was I was afraid of going bald. Number one, fear of going bald. Well, guess what? Anyway, all these fears, okay, all these things, and they're all self-obsessions, okay. And we're going to do a couple of examples, and then it says we asked ourselves why we had them, okay. So column 2, why am I afraid? Why am I afraid of rejection? Well, because it hurts, and I feel less than, and I want to be a part of. Whatever it is, there's no wrong answer to put there. Just in column 2, we're just going to write out again. Probably, again, a good model to keep it to 19 words. Just keep it short. Okay, we don't want to dwell on these. I don't want to dwell on these. What I want to dwell on is the solution in column 4. And we have a solution to fear in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's beautiful. Okay, then, so column 1, I write, what is the fear? Column 2, we ask ourselves why we had the fear. Okay. Then it says, wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? That's what we want to look at in column 3. How has self-reliance failed me? And we're going to talk about this here for a minute. So, Brad, you want to read? Let's read that whole paragraph again, if you don't mind. Top of page 68, please, Brad.
Sure. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse.
Okay, so now next we're going to get into the solution. But let's talk about column 3 first. How has self-reliance failed me? The way that I do this, the way that I've been taught, and the way that I teach my sponsees is to look at who do I become when I'm relying on myself. Without Alcoholics Anonymous, without the big book, without the 12 steps, without any relationship with God, who am I? Who do I become? Well, first of all, I'm drunk, guaranteed. I'm on drugs. I'm sick, selfish, self-centered, dishonest, manipulative. And I think about how does me bringing that individual back into my life relate to the fear that I might have? So, for example, if I'm afraid of rejection, okay, I'm afraid of rejection. Well, part of why I'm afraid of rejection is probably because I've been rejected in the past and it hurt, okay? And I feel less than and socially unaccepted and so on. Does it make sense, guys, that if I am drunk and on drugs and sick and selfish and self-centered, manipulative and dishonest, that I'm more likely to be rejected by people? Heck yes, man. Of course, it's not even rejection, it's just self-preservation. People just need to get away from it, okay? Because I'm a toxic virus when I live that way. That's how self-reliance is failing me in terms of this fear of rejection. Okay. I think, oh my God, I'm going to be rejected by these people because I know what a flimsy reed I am on my own, without God, without Alcoholics Anonymous. I know who I am capable of being. And I know that people will reject that guy. Okay. That's the worst case scenario. Okay. Now hang with me, guys, because we have a solution for this. I promise you. Okay. But this is what we want to do. When I look at, I'm afraid of financial insecurity. I'm afraid I'm going to go bankrupt. Well, is it safe to say that if I'm drunk and on drugs and sick and selfish and manipulative and dishonest and lazy and taking advantage of people and lying and all that stuff, that's who I am on self-reliance at my home group, that's who I become. Okay. And you better believe that guy is going to experience financial insecurity 100%. Okay. I have a fear of failure. If I bring column 3 guy to the party, so to speak, that's how I'm living, I am going to experience failure in every area of my life. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, on my knees again, begging for help, again, begging 1835 Recovery Acres to let me in, begging them with tears of sincerity. I had failed in every area of life that a person can fail. Okay. I'm afraid that I'm unlovable. Well, look, none of us are unlovable. Okay. We all deserve God's love and God's grace, but man, we can sure make it hard for human beings to love us because human beings are not God. Okay. And man, you better hard for people to love me. You better believe I can be that guy. Okay. And that's column 3. How has self-reliance failed me? I got to get real about who I can become, the worst version of Kevin, and then how does that relate to whatever the fear might be? Does that make sense, you guys, so far? Does that make sense up to column 3? Okay. Rock and roll. Okay, then let's start talking about the solution, baby. We love it. Okay, Brad. So please read through the next 2 paragraphs for us, Brad, and then I'm going to kind of fill in some of the blanks here.
Perhaps there is a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We're in the world to play the role he assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think he would have us and humbly rely on him, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear.
Beautiful. All right. So first of all, just like in resentment, column 4, but in between column 3 and column 4, there's a prayer. Okay, and the prayer is at the bottom of what Brad just read. Again, in our book, anytime it says we ask him or we ask God, that's a prayer. Okay, so at the bottom of page 68, not the bottom, but the last paragraph that Brad just read, it says we ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. Okay, so this is the prayer that we say, and again, as a discipline with my sponsees, I ask them to say this one time for every fear that they have. God, please remove my fear of rejection and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. God, please remove my fear of financial insecurity and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. God, please remove my fear of being abandoned and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. God, please remove my fear of being sick or getting cancer, and please direct my attention towards what you would have me be. Amen. Okay? Now, the big question is, what would God have us be? What does God want us to be? I would submit. God wants us to be love. God wants us to be of service. Love and service. Okay. And the beautiful thing about being of service, the beautiful thing about particularly sponsorship and, either getting a commitment at my home group and thinking about my group, or getting a sponsee and thinking about them and thinking what I can do for them. If I'm thinking about you, what am I not thinking about? Me. And what did we learn is the root of the trouble with our fear anyway? Me obsessing about me. That's why we say selfishness and self-centeredness. This is the root of our trouble. Okay? Me sitting at home alone thinking about myself and my life and the fear factory starts creating, man, I'm the kind of guy, if I don't have something to worry about, I'll manufacture something. Okay? I do it all the time. Okay? If I'm not feeling anxious, something feels off. Okay? I have to, and I'll create all these things. Okay? Now we'll talk more when we get to step 6 and 7 about the awareness of these things in our lives as they come to us. Okay? One of the great gifts in life is today when I am feeling tangled up, when I am feeling off or anxious or uncomfortable, today I can pause and say to myself, what is this I'm feeling right now? Oh, this is a resentment. Okay. Column 1, column 2, column 3, say the prayer, column 4, apply that tool. Or in this case, I can say, oh man, I'm full of fear right now about this situation. Okay. Why am I afraid? Well, okay. How has self-reliance failed me in the past? Okay. And to that point, how is self-reliance, if I start, living in self-will again, me living in self-will, even in sobriety, how is it going to create this fear? Okay. So then we say to prayer, God, please remove my fear of not being enough. God, please remove my fear of not being enough. That's a big one we hear about in AA a lot. I fear that I'm not enough. Okay. And what I have learned, guys, about that, by the way, is that I'm not enough. Okay. I am not enough. Okay. I got news for you. I'm going to help you with this. I'm not enough. Where do I learn that? Column 3. What is column 3? Self-reliance. On my own, I am not enough. Maybe there are some people who are. I'm not one of them. I need to do as God would have me and fully rely on him. God is big enough. God is enough. I don't tell God how big my problems are. I tell my problems how big my God is. Okay? God is enough. Okay? I am not enough, but I can access his power into my life through the application of these steps. And I promise you, brothers and sisters, God is enough. God is big enough to handle all my problems. Okay? And that brings me to column 4. Okay? What we ask in column 4, this is the question. It says, Brad just read, there is a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis. The basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. Okay? I am finite. I am not enough. That's what that means. Okay? I'm a finite human being. I have very, very limited amounts of power, but I can get access to the power, capital P power, in Alcoholics Anonymous through the simple application of these 12 steps. I gain access to this power, and this power makes me enough. Okay? And it comes to me. I am the bucket. I am not the well. I am the bulb. I am not the light. Okay? But there is a light, and it comes to us, and that light gives us power. Does that make sense, you guys? And therefore, I become enough through God's grace. Anyway, so it says now, we trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role he assigns, just to the extent, number 1, that we do. Remember, guys, most important word in Alcoholics Anonymous is the word do. Just to the extent that I do as he would have us and humbly rely on him, does he enable us to match calamity with serenity. Okay? So this is how we break it down, guys. This is how we break it down. Surface level, I take a look at the fear and I ask myself, how would doing God's will remove the fear? And then there's a deeper promise. How would trusting God and fully relying upon him remove the fear? Okay. So surface level, just as we do as God would have us, and the deeper level, fully rely or trust God. How would these remove the fear? Now, I know that's a little ambiguous. The best way to do it is to go through a few fears, and I'm mindful of the time. We've got 10 minutes, which should be lots of time for us to go through 3, maybe 4 examples, okay? I'm going to give you 2, and then I'm going to ask for a couple of volunteers to bring up. I know none of you actually have any fears, so imagine that you have one. Imagine a fear that you might have, and make it up if you can, and we'll we'll go through it. Okay, so let's say column 1, typical alcoholic fear, fear of rejection. Okay, and everyone on this call has a fear of rejection. Okay. I go to my own home group on Wednesday nights with, sometimes I'm here, oh, they're not going to like me this time. Like, we're crazy. Okay. Column 1, fear of rejection. Column 2, why? Well, it hurts and I've been rejected in the past. I don't like to feel left out. I want to be a part of, so on and so forth. Okay. How has self-reliance failed me? Well, we talked about that. Me being a jerk. Okay. And living like a selfish, self-centered, dishonest, manipulative taker in life, yeah, people are not going to want to be around me. Newsflash. Okay, so page 68, you say the prayer, God, please remove my fear of rejection and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. What would God have us be? Love and service. So now we go to column 4. What is God's will for me? Okay, at a base level, number 1, if nothing else, we can all agree God's will for me as an alcoholic is to be sober. That is God's will. Okay, so right out of the gate, I'm sober. Right out of the gate, that puts me in a better position to not get rejected by people the way that I would had I been drinking. Okay, also, I'm telling the truth to people. I'm seeing how I can be of service to them, what I can do for them. I see them as suffering people, and what can I do to relieve their suffering? Okay, I'm honest and I'm showing up on time, and I'm living in God's will. Would you agree at a surface level, guys, at a surface level, that me just being that type of a person and allowing God's light to shine through me makes me a person that is less likely to be rejected by other people, and probably someone who is more attractive to others? Would you guys agree with that? Yeah? Okay. But the deeper promise is fully relying on God and trusting God. And I always start these guys with the phrase, even if. So even if I am rejected by a human being, I know that I am okay, and I will be okay, because my well-being no longer depends upon the approval of other human beings. My well-being depends upon my relationship with an all-loving, all-powerful God. And that is the foundation that I'm living my life upon today. Okay. I don't need the approval of human beings. I'm not a people pleaser anymore. I am a God pleaser. I live my life for God, and then God has me go out and be of service to others, love and service to others. Okay. And even then, when I know that I'm on that foundation, nothing can hurt me. When I am truly, genuinely on that foundation, nothing can hurt me. Okay. So let's say now my column 1, let's say the fear was financial insecurity. Column 2, why? Well, I like having money. I don't want to be broke. It might be embarrassing, humiliating to, lose all my money or whatever it is. Okay. Column 3, how has self-reliance failed me? Drunk, on drugs, sick, selfish, dishonest, irresponsible, inconsiderate. That guy is going to experience financial insecurity, guaranteed. Okay. Page, we say the prayer, God, please remove my fear of financial insecurity and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. We go to column 4, surface level. I'm sober. I'm doing God's will. I'm sober. I'm not using anymore. I'm not hurting people. I'm trying not to hurt people. I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm trying to, be honest at work and show up on time and do a good job. Like they say at the Pacific Group, we give them a dime for every nickel they pay us. Beautiful. Okay. Do you think it's safe to say that that guy living that type of life is less likely to experience financial insecurity? Yeah, that's the surface level. Doing God's will and being that guy. Essentially being a good member of AA. Okay. Being devoted to this way of life, I'm less likely to experience financial insecurity. But the deeper promise is that, as it says, even if I experience financial hardship, I can still live a life of purpose and meaning and gratitude, and know that in maybe in a smaller way, I'm still going to be taken care of, and that I will be okay, and that my well-being does not depend upon the money in my pocket. As the speaker Johnny Harris used to say, nothing I can hold in my hand has any real value in God's world. I got the real storehouse in my Father's treasure chest, the things of the Spirit that cannot be bought and sold. And when I know that my real employer, capital E employer, is God, suddenly I'm no longer afraid of financial insecurity. But the best part of that is I also do God's will and I live this way of life and I've got a great job and I make all kinds of money. And it's great. Hey? But I also don't have to be afraid of it anymore. It's wonderful. Okay? So now, guys, we've probably got time. Now, I want to end at 7. So we've got just a couple minutes. Anyone else have has someone imagined a fear that they might have? Anyone online? Come on now, don't be shy. Shiva, give us one, buddy.
I'm going to be alone forever.
Say again, Shiva?
I am going to be alone forever.
Oh, I'm going to be alone forever. Beautiful. This is easy. I love it. Once you start to get reps in this tool, once you start to know how this works, it's like you just swat fears away like flies when I apply the tool, which I don't always do. Sometimes I like to wallow around in filth of fear like a barnyard animal, and I do sometimes until I apply the tool. Column 1, what am I afraid of? I'm going to be alone forever. Column 2, why? Well, because I've maybe broken relationships and I don't have anyone in my life right now, so on and so forth. Okay? How has self-reliance failed me? If I'm drunk, on drugs, sick, selfish, dishonest, using, taking, irresponsible, inconsiderate, is it safe to say I'm a higher chance of me being alone forever? You bet. Okay? Say the prayer, God, please remove my fear of being alone forever and direct my attention towards what you would have me be. God would have us be love and service. Now, column 4, surface level. I'm sober. I'm kind. I'm loving. I'm considerate. I'm honest. I'm a good person. I show up on time. I'm considerate. I'm giving back to people instead of trying to take all the time. That makes me more attractive. And I mean that in the spiritual sense, not even the physical sense, although there is a light that starts to shine from us that is physically attractive too. Okay, that's the surface level. And probably a person like that is not going to be alone forever. And more to the point, I'm a good member of AA. I'm well loved by my AA home group. I'm contributing to my group. I'm building up the group. Man, anyone who came to Primary Purpose Group over on Sunday, we had a barbecue. People invited their families. It was incredible. I don't know about you, Shiva, but I did not feel alone on Sunday afternoon. Surrounded by beautiful home group members and all of their families. It meant the world to me. Incredible. We're part of the largest fellowship on planet Earth, man. 2 million people. Well, not the largest on planet Earth, but a big one, man. We got brothers and sisters all over the world. But the deeper promise, okay, is that even if I find that I am alone, I don't ever have to be alone, because I can be in perfect peace and ease with God and with my Creator all the time. And then by default, God doesn't want us to be alone. So what does God want me to do? He wants me to go carry this message to someone else. And I need to go go to a meeting and go to a home group and go wherever and go find new people to work with and create this fellowship about me. And I will never, ever be alone again. I can be in perfect peace and ease with God. And then what does God want me to do? He wants me to go share this with other people and grow a fellowship about me. And I never have to be alone again. All right. And that time, 7 p.m. right there. All right, guys. I love you all very much. So please don't drop off right away, guys. One of my favorite parts of the night is always we're gonna go around the room, if you will, and everyone just say hello and let us know where you're from, and I love it. So we will close with the Lord's Prayer, as we like to do in this study. I like the Lord's Prayer. So we'll say that, and then everyone stick around, and we'll go around and say just a quick hello and let us know where you're from. All right.